Hey everyone, it's Argonaut here from Returning the Fan, and again we have another attack from a left-wing nutjob on the Lord of the Rings, presumably because Amazon is making a woke version of Lord of the Rings, and so they need to destroy Peter Jackson's version because they seem to think it being racist. So let's have a read of this. It's on Bounding into Comics if you want to go and read the article itself later on. The website Film Updates and its writer Bessie Smith, obviously has to be a left-wing website, I would say, published an article claiming that director Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy are steeped in racist imagery. What a load of bullshit. I am not white, right? I saw Lord of the Rings trilogy. As most people say, it is the greatest trilogy of all time. I was absolutely fascinated by all three movies, and never once did I ever think about the race of any of the people that were in that particular movie, right? And no one did it at the time. It's only now because of all you left-wing nut jobs out there. The article was published on November 4th, with Film Update sharing it on Twitter, writing, "When casting for Lord of the Rings series was announced, the cast members of colour were met with racism." They added, Bessie Devlin asked, did the all-white legacy of the original film breathe this environment, and why have the cast and creative team remained silent? In the article's first paragraph, Devlin takes issue with Elijah Wood purchasing an NFT of George Trostley's Jungle Freak series. I have no idea who that guy is, but apparently he's written some controversial cartoons and stuff. I don't really care. What does Elijah Wood buying something have to do with the casting of the Lord of the Rings series? So I'm not going to go into that at all. You can read in the article if you really want to. I don't really care what Elijah Woods does in his own time. He doesn't have any effect on who's hired and who's not on the actual show or the casting of that particular one. Nevertheless, Smith used Wood's purchase and subsequent apology to write, "It is still an unfortunate misstep from an actor propelled to fame by Lord of the Rings, an all-white film franchise steeped in racist imagery, whose cast and creative team have never reckoned with the racism they enabled in their fan base, while actors of colour in the new Lord of the Rings series on Amazon Prime pay the price." No one of the fan base has ever become racist because of Lord of the Rings. It's actually you, Bessie Smith, you left-wing nut jobs, who are actually the racist people out there, because you're the one that's bringing up race, and none of the original fan base ever brought up race when the movies came out or in the subsequent years. It's only now because of this stupid left-wing agenda that you're bringing it up. You are the racist, right? Bessie Smith, not the fans of Lord of the Rings. From there, Smith goes on to claim that two of the show's actors were flooded with violent racism, degrading racist jokes, and assurances that the show would be a disaster due to going woke and tellingly featuring explicit sexual content. That the presence of a black cast led fans to believe that the show would be hypersexual. I don't think anyone thought that because you have a black cast it's going to be hypersexual. It's the production company itself that went into those sorts of things, Bessie Smith, not because the cast is black. It's because you tried to hire a sexuality advisor for the friggin' show. First, the idea that the show would feature sexually explicit content had nothing to do with the race of the actors. That was a rumour based off a casting call on BGT that read, "BGT are currently on the search for talent who are comfortable with partial or full nudity. Intimacy guidelines will always be followed on set. We are after all shapes and sizes and uniquely beautiful looks." And I'm pretty sure they actually hired an intimacy advisor who would look after all the intimacy. Lord of the Rings doesn't need nudity or sex in it, right? It doesn't need that sort of rubbish in it. It can stand by itself on the source material. This is just going to be an absolute trash fire of a series. And I don't think I'll be watching it. I'll be interested to see if you are still interested in it. While the casting call does not specifically mention Lord of the Rings, the One Ring Net's Cliff Broadway claimed that the code word jazz is connected to the Lord of the Rings production. On top of this, Night Edge Media reported that the show hired New Zealand native Jennifer Ward-Leland as an intimacy coordinator for Amazon UAP. The project is even listed on Ward-Leland's website. So you can see they've hired an intimacy coordinator, which means it's going to have nudity and sex in it. Lord of the Rings doesn't need it. The source material stands up by itself. It is amazing source material, but the actual series, it's just looking like it's going to be trash. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I could be wrong. So we'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think in the comment section later on. Second, Smith provides absolutely zero evidence concerning her accusations about violent racism and degrading race. This is the thing about these left-wing agenda nut jobs. They never provide any evidence because they don't need to, because they know that everyone on Twitter will just take it as gospel what it is that they're actually saying. No one does any kind of critical analysis of anything these days. There's been plenty of legitimate criticism that the show is taking extreme liberties with Tolkien's writing, such as casting of Lenny Henry as a hobbit and turning the Harfoots, a species of hobbits, into a multicultural tribe. So yes, apparently we're getting black hobbits, Asian hobbits, and even Maori hobbits. So yeah, I wonder how that's going to work. Smith then gets to the gist of the article, writing, the fans and cast of colour should have had the support of the cast and production team of the original film trilogy. She adds, an intervention by the film's cast and production team was sorely needed for three reasons. First, revered as they are by fans, their voices would have a powerful impact on them. Maybe they don't give a shit about the TV series because they think it's going to be absolute shit. Bessie Smith. Maybe that's why they didn't do it, not because of race. Second, it would be important to show of solidarity with black actors in an industry where they are marginalised and mistreated. Maybe they just hired the best actors for the roles. That would be a kind of novel thing, right? Just hire the best person for the job. Then she claims the original trilogy laid the groundwork for racism in the fan base. Third, and perhaps most importantly, they should have intervened because the films that made their name laid the ground for racism in the fan base, she states. She doesn't give any evidence for this. She is an absolute trash fire of a... I was going to say journalist, but she's not really a journalist, is she? She then tries to explain how Jackson's original trilogy laid the ground writing. Peter Jackson's trilogy, while spectacular and groundbreaking in many ways, is glaringly white because that's how Tolkien wrote those particular characters. Oh my god, is she an absolute doofus or something? Worse, the human villains are all coded as non-white, bad men from the east and south, complete with either veils and coal or bearing tribal tattooing and sacrification and riding mythical elephants. If it's not clear now, Smith doesn't appear to have actually read Tolkien's work. Of course not, they never do. They never do. Tolkien clearly details that men from the Far Harad are black. He wrote, he now was destroyed, but Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul, had flung them into the fray, Easterling with axes and Variags of Khand, Southrons in scarlet, and out of Far Harad, black men like half-trolls with white eyes and red tongues. However, Smith did not stop taking issue with the characters portrayed in the film that are faithful to Tolkien's book. She turned to a ridiculous argument about orcs and Uruk-hai. Oh, we heard about this before, right? Uruk-hai, it's racist because all the Uruk-hai were black. Smith writes, worst of all, the inhuman Uruk-hai, muscled and merciless, have black skin and dreadlocks, while some of this British colonial racism and eugenicists thought are a reflection of the source material itself. Jackson made a possibly thoughtless choice to remain faithful to those parts of the text, and even he was faithful to the source material. That's how Tolkien wrote it. This person is an absolute garbage person, right? Maybe they have black skin because they generally are kind of very animalistic. They probably live in the outdoors and stuff, and so that could be one of the particular reasons, right? She says, she used this to then say, as a result, racist fans were not alienated by the films, but accommodated, allowed to believe that the extremely racist interpretation of Tolkien's work. She doesn't give any evidence. No one ever thought that because of the Lord of the Rings, they can say racist things about black people. It's mind-boggling that you can describe their depictions as faithful to the source and then claim people are racist for defending the faithful adaptation. As for the source in the Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien described one orc chieftain, as almost man-high, clad in black mail from head to foot, leaped into the chamber. Behind him his followers clustered in the doorway. His broad, flat face was swart, his eyes were like coals, his tongue was red, he wielded a giant spear. However, that was an orc from the mines of Moria and not an Uruk-hai. In the Two Towers, Tolkien writes, in the twilight he saw a large black orc, probably Ugluk, standing facing Grishnak, a short, crooked-legged creature, very broad, with long arms that hung almost to the ground. Round them were many smaller goblins. Pippin supposed that these were the ones from the north. They had drawn their knives and swords, but hesitated to attack Ugluk. So yeah, no mention of race in those particular paragraphs from Tolkien's work. Nevertheless, the race-obsessed Smith, because she's a racist, that's why she's race-obsessed. She is an out-and-out absolute racist, Bessie Smith. I know you're never going to watch this video, but you are an absolute racist, garbage person. Then states the film trilogy benefited from their racist support, and everyone involved in it is therefore complicit in the abuse now raining down on the series cast of colour. I am not white. Do you think that I am also racist as well? She adds the comments directed at non-vet and Cruz Cordova are not generic racism. They are rooted in the racist law and imagery that Jackson's films perpetuated. Smith then has the gall to claim she's not trying to cancel Jackson, describing his work, just despite describing his work as racist. No, I'm not cancelling anyone. I'm just pointing out that you're a racist so that hopefully no one else will ever hire you again, but I'm not cancelling you, Peter Jackson. She says this is not an attempt to cancel Jackson's trilogy. It is simply a request that Jackson and the cast use their vast wealth, platform and white privilege to reckon. Do you know where Peter Jackson came from, Bessie Smith? He came from nothing, right? He didn't have wealthy parents. He wasn't wealthy. He worked his ass off creating movies like Meet the Feebles, things like that. And he was able to get noticed by Hollywood and then be given the privilege of making Lord of the Rings. He's never had any white privilege. He just worked hard and got to where he got to. Just the same, look at Taika Waititi. He also wasn't, didn't have any privilege, but he managed to work his way up into Hollywood as well, just like Peter Jackson did, right? So anyone can do it. You just got to work hard. It's got nothing to do with race. It's definitely not a request. It's an attempt to shame Jackson to adhere to her demands by insinuating that he's a racist, by claiming his work on Lord of the Rings is racist. It's wrong, disgusting, and sickening. That is absolutely right. Bounding into comics, she is a trash fire of a person. And while this entire piece by Smith is a hideous display of racial politics, it is highly unlikely it will be the last, as Ammon's Lord of the Rings series veers widely veers from Tolkien's writings, something that we already know will do, given Lenny Henry comments about the Hobbits. So we know that Amazon is likely to be moving away from some of the source material and taking things in a more woke direction. I am not going to pay Amazon to watch that series, and hopefully if you are absolutely disgusted like I am about the attacks going on about the greatest trilogy ever, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, I hope you're with me as well. Let me know in the comment section, will you be watching Amazon Lord of the Rings TV series, or are you with me and you don't want to give any more money to these sorts of people? That's the only way to beat the left-wing agenda in Hollywood, is to not pay for their content. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down. And if you're comfortable sharing this video with anyone that you know, then that would be awesome as well. And if you like my content, please subscribe, as it just means that the YouTube algorithm will notice my content. And hopefully I will catch you in the next video.